I recently faced my own worst nightmare. The HOA Karen's son thought it would be funny to humiliate my 14-year-old daughter in the middle of a storm, and that single decision changed the entire neighborhood. My name's Nate Walker, though most folks around Birchfield Meadows just call me Mr. Walker. I learned a long time ago that when chaos hits, calm wins. It's something the military burned into me. Steady voice, steady hands, even when the sky itself is breaking apart. My wife Heather says that calm is what drew her to me. That quiet certainty that says, no matter what happens, I'll get us home. That night, every promise behind those words was tested. The storm rolled over Ohio like a living thing, purple-black sky splitting open with lightning, the kind that rattles windows and guts at once. Isabel, my daughter, my heart walking outside my body, was supposed to be 2 streets over finishing a school project. 14 means you still think adventure is harmless, that thunder's just sound. For parents, it's a knot that tightens every time the clock moves. 9 p.m. came and went. Heather's eyes stayed on her phone. "She's not answering," she said. I told her it was probably on silent, but the air felt wrong, too still between the wind gusts. At 9:30, the call came. Her voice was shaking, wind roaring behind it. "Dad, I need you!" That's all I heard before the line cracked apart. I didn't waste a second. Boots, flashlight, jacket. Heather already dialing 911. We ran through the rain, our beams cutting small circles through walls of water. When we found her, soaked and trembling near the old cottonwood, I swear the world stopped spinning. I didn't ask how yet. I just wrapped my coat around her and kept saying, "You're safe, baby. You're safe now." Heather stayed on the phone with the dispatcher, giving coordinates, breath steady but tight. The deputy came, slow through flooded streets. And by the time he did, I'd already learned the name that would echo for months. Brody Goodson, HOA Karen's golden child. The boy who thought consequences were for other people. The deputy took notes. Polite but detached, said they'd talk to the Goodsons once the weather cleared. That's how you learn what privilege looks like. Patience when outrage is due. I spent the rest of the night beside Isabel's bed while thunder rolled off into distance. She finally whispered, "He said it was a joke." I didn't answer. Some things don't deserve words. Morning light made everything look normal again, but nothing was. Heather wanted to believe the system would handle it. I'd seen too many systems protect the wrong side. Still, I filed the report, printed the photos, logged every word. I thought that would be enough. It wasn't. Karen Goodson ran the HOA like a kingdom built on fines and fear. If your grass grew half an inch too high, you'd get a notice before you finished mowing. People laughed at first, then learned to stay small. She was charming at bake sales and vicious behind closed doors. Her son learned from the best. 2 days later, Mark, the county investigator assigned to the case, called. Said he'd spoken to the Goodsons. "They claim your daughter exaggerated," he told me, voice careful. I thanked him for honesty, hung up and stared at the wall until it blurred. Heather touched my arm. "Don't," she said. "You promised." She was right. Violence fixes nothing. Proof fixes everything. That night I started a logbook. Date, time, event. A soldier's way of building a case. I didn't know then it had become our lifeline. Karen struck first. She sent a community email calling the incident a misunderstanding between minors. She framed Isabel as dramatic, implied Heather and I were unstable newcomers stirring trouble. Neighbors stopped waving. Some looked away. That's what power does. It makes cowards polite. The next morning our trash can was tipped, our mailbox dented. Minor but loud. I kept adding to the log. Then one night a brick shattered Isabel's window. Tied around it was a scrap of rope, muddy and wet. Message received. The deputy who came barely looked up from his tablet. "Probably kids," he said. Kids. I followed him out to the curb, rain sliding down both our faces. "If those were your kids," I asked, "would you still call it a prank?" He didn't answer. He just handed me a case number. When his taillights vanished, Heather whispered, "We need allies." That's when Uncle Dan stepped in. Not blood, but better than most family. Retired Signal Corps, silver hair, quiet eyes that missed nothing. He'd watched the patrol cars, the broken window, the fear. "Karen had cameras installed around the pool house," he said. Top-grade system. If those boys were out there that night, one of those lenses saw them. He explained the server, the looped recordings, the access panel inside a maintenance closet. Illegal to touch, but injustice was already illegal. 2 nights later, under moonlight sharp as glass, Dan kept watch from his porch while I slipped into the pool house. The keypad clicked open. Default code, of course. Inside smelled of chlorine and arrogance. The recorder hummed behind pipes. I cloned the drive, wiped my prints, left the night as quiet as I'd found it. What we saw on that screen changed everything. Rain distorted the footage, but not enough to hide faces. Brody and 2 friends cornering my girl, mocking, posturing, then leaving her behind in weather that could kill. We didn't watch the full hour. Couldn't. Heather pressed pause, tears streaking the glow. "We have them," she said. Dan nodded but kept scrolling. The drive held more, folder after folder named for streets, houses, ours among them. Hidden cameras all over Birchfield Meadows, streaming to that same device. Karen hadn't just abused authority. She'd built a private surveillance web. Then came the email folder. One message froze the room. From Karen Goodson to her son, subject line Isabel Walker. Time that girl learned respect. Be smart. That was intent. Digital and undeniable. We couldn't hand it over directly. Chain of custody would kill it. Heather crafted the plan. Anonymous tip to Detective Miller, the one officer who still believed in procedure. We told her what to look for. Illegal surveillance, HOA fund misuse, and when to look. Meanwhile, we prepared the neighborhood for truth. Heather found a clause in the bylaws. Any 10% of homeowners could demand a special meeting. 247 homes meant 25 signatures. We got 38. People were tired of fear. Karen tried to stall, scheduling the meeting midweek, burying notice inside a newsletter. We countered with flyers, doorstep talks, quiet conversations on sidewalks. I told them my daughter's story plain, without embellishment. Shame works best in daylight. The night of the meeting, the clubhouse overflowed. Standing room only, air humming with tension. Karen sat at the front, flanked by her board, her smile stretched thin. When she called for new business, I stood. "My name is Nate Walker," I said. "My family has been harassed, intimidated, and silenced by this association's leadership. Tonight that ends," murmurs rippled. Karen tried her gavel. "Out of order." A board member, finally brave, said, "Let him speak." Dan hit play. The projector filled the wall with storm and truth. Gasps, curses, disbelief. When the clip ended, silence fell heavy as rain. Then I read aloud the email, each word landing like a hammer. "Be smart about it." Heather's voice followed mine. "That's from our HOA president to her son." A woman in back shouted, "She fined me for a bird bath." Laughter cracked, tension snapped. Karen's face drained. She muttered about forgeries, but the crowd had seen enough. Then the door opened and Detective Miller stepped in with deputies and a warrant. "We'll take it from here," she said. They seized the server, the files, the proof. Brody was arrested for unlawful restraint and harassment. Karen for illegal surveillance and fraud. The board dissolved on the spot. Someone started a chant, "Recall, recall!" And for the first time, Birchfield Meadows sounded alive. In the months that followed, justice worked its slow gears. Brody pled to community service and counseling. Karen paid heavy fines, barred from any association leadership. The Goodsons sold their mansion-sized grievance and moved away before winter. A new board formed, neighbors who remembered what decency looked like. They opened records, scrapped the petty fines, restored trust. Uncle Dan became interim president. Said he'd serve until he taught someone younger how not to abuse power. At home, Isabel healed. Therapy helped, but what really fixed her was time and proof that the world could still choose right. One bright afternoon, I watched her wheel her skateboard down the sidewalk, stop under the cottonwood, rest her hand on its bark like forgiving an old ghost, then push off into sunlight. Heather came beside me, leaned her head on my shoulder. "You kept your promise," she said. "Maybe I did. Calm isn't silence. It's direction." Weeks later, Detective Miller dropped by with final paperwork. She smiled, a rare thing for her. "You know," she said, "if you hadn't documented everything, we'd never have built a case that clean." I told her truth doesn't need noise, just patience. She laughed. Said most people don't understand that. Birchfield Meadows looks different now. People wave again. Kids chalk the sidewalks. Nobody measures the color of trim. The HOA bulletin board has a new motto printed under the rules. Community means everyone. I still keep the old logbook. Each page a reminder that restraint can be louder than rage. When storms roll through, I check the windows, then sit quietly, listening to the wind but not fearing it. Sometimes neighbors ask how we stayed so composed. I tell them calm isn't born. It's trained. You learn it when you've seen too much fire to flinch. You learn it when your child's voice on the phone becomes a mission. And you keep it because losing it means losing everything. That's the story of Birchfield Meadows, the night a petty queen lost her crown and a father kept his word. Not every fight needs fists. Some just need receipts, courage, and the will to stand up when silence is easier. So if the sky ever turns purple and the world feels like it's closing in, remember this. Stay steady, stay clear, and if someone you love is in danger, call your dad, then bring the truth. So if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe for more true and real-life stories.